Welcome to the Bitcoin podcast. Kale and I are here today with Zack Smith. Zack, welcome to the Bitcoin podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
So, Zack, you and I have known one another for a while. So, you are a farmer, an agricultural entrepreneur, but could you fill in our audience on your story, please?
Sure. So Zack Smith, I live outside of Lake Mills, Iowa, up in Winnebago County, right on the Minnesota border. Proud graduate of Iowa State University, degree in agronomy in 2002, and I've worked in various forms of ag retail since 2003, I guess, until about 2021. Finishing up my career as a Pioneer Seed rep at that point, and I retired from that at 42 to have the opportunity to farm full time as well as pursue my startup company, Stockropper, that I've been working on since 2020, which is a company focused on making smart autonomous devices to move livestock across various landscapes, cornfields, backyards, green spaces, you name it. The so that's my background, what I'm up to. Also a dad to two Iowa State kids right now as well, so I'm really proud about that, and I'm hoping our basketball team can get their act together and pull something together for the Big 12 tournament here. So
Yeah, hopefully so. Um, so we've probably, Zack, got introduced about the same time as I got introduced to Stockcropper. And that to me identified you as a different thinker. So talk a little bit about what that is. Talk about strip cropping. Talk about the vision, at least, for being able to integrate livestock and crops in a new way, and make money on a smaller amount of acres than what you would being a
yeah,
commodity producer.
that was a great setup for what I mean. The genesis was it was me and two other small farmers that were looking at super low commodity prices in 2020 and wanted to create something, wanted to fix it with our brains rather than hoping for a bailout, essentially. That was the idea. And we'd been playing around with strip intercropping, and we knew that we could boost corn yield simply from arrangement of having a tall crop next to a short crop. And the problem is with that problem or with that situation, the shorter crop in soybeans usually takes a yield hit while the corn takes or gets an increase. So what we were trying to figure out is how could we find something that could do as well as what the corn does in that situation. And so we played around with a lot of ideas, but ended up having the concept of what if we put livestock in the middle of a cornfield in these strips. And so in order to do that, we had to invent the world's first three-ring animal circus on wheels that would house sheep, goats, pigs, and chickens in a wagon train, essentially. And we called our concoction that we dreamt up and built during the breakout of the pandemic, we called it the Cluster Cluck 5000. And it's basically a mobile grazing barn on wheels that allows the animals to interact with the vegetation, the pasture strips that we had. So we had 20 foot of pasture, 20 foot of corn, and moved every day. We'd move it several times to see what happened. And it has been an incredible ride. The system works incredibly well. We've proven that you can produce on an acre of grazing with our system. You can produce up to $15,000 of gross revenue from the pasture raised protein because of the enterprise stacking that the device allows. You can reduce your corn nutrients by 75% from utilizing what's in the manure. And you can, substantially increase your corn yield. On our farm, it's been pretty easy to get another 60 or 70 bushel an acre just simply from the arrangement. And so not only have we done on our farm, one thing I'm really proud about is the fact that Precision Planting called us to have it on. They wanted a cluster cluck on on their PTI demonstration farm in central Illinois to test it. So it was a great place to send for third party validation. So they just couldn't say it was me trying to be famous on the internet. It was actually real. And so they've had our barn working since 2023 there, was the first year. And then they planted corn where the barn went in 24 and again in 25, rotating the strips back and forth. And for the last 2 years, we've dominated everything at the PTI farm. We set the all-time corn record of 434.9 bushels last year and followed up with 426.7 this year. And they've been parading stock crop around on the PTI tour all winter long with us being the number one most profitable and highest yielding system of anything in agriculture they evaluate there. So it's pretty cool for a couple farmers to have a wild idea. And it's really simple. Like, I think that's maybe what makes people mad. It's just arrangement and animals. And That's it. So there's not a lot of secret sauce, but it's really fun and cool to be a part of. And yeah. So, but the thing I'll say is we pivoted with the company because the biggest restriction to its scaling, it's awesome that it does well, but you've got to have an independent meat system to sell the product into, and that doesn't exist. And so, our bet when we started was with the disruption with COVID that maybe would happen, but it hasn't. So we pivoted into what we call the protein sovereignty space. And now I'm focused on making really small devices for people to grow their own protein, like backyard chickens or pigs or goats or sheep in small pens, and take the technology we've developed to do that. So,
Well, I heard through my friend Grapevine that somebody who's starting a small chicken operation for his children on his new acreage,
hmm
called up to buy a Cluster Cluck. So that's cool.
yeah, yeah,
It's really interesting with like the new popularity of the homesteading trend too. Like my generation has really gotten into homesteading because of the freedom that it provides. So it's like perfect market fit.
yeah. In the market, yeah. I mean, that's one of the things. There's like 13.5 million either homesteads or backyards that have chickens, and um, our new product that we're bringing out that we just launched today, actually, the Cluster Cluck Drive, which is a drive unit you can bolt on any type of coop or pen that you have, and it can give you either manual or autonomous control. I think it's going to be a huge fit for that, and we're really, really excited to get it in those people's hands here in the next year.
Well, as you indicate, Zach, I mean, it's sort of like bringing the old into the new.
Yeah,
Rotational grazing, using manure as fertilizer, rotating where your crop is from one year to the next. I mean, these are some of the oldest principles ever. But
we're
you're
just
using,
taking new technology
yeah,
and combining it with old school stuff. It's
yeah,
really simple. So
yeah. Well, zooming forward, maybe to another little bit of the old, little bit of the new. Bitcoin. I'd known you for a period of years. Uh, But a friend who knew I was working on Bitcoin stuff even before Bitcoin was born said, "Have you talked to Zach about Bitcoin?" I'm like, "No, why?" Because he knows a lot about Bitcoin. So, can you share with us a little bit about your Bitcoin journey?
yeah, for sure. So I became interested in it in 2021, I think it was, because I was fascinated with a grist mill in Fertile, Iowa that I wanted to buy. And I wanted to buy it because I wanted to create a butcher experience location for people to come and learn how to butcher pigs and have kind of an uptown experience doing it. And this grist mill actually had water wheels in the basement, and I was shooting video and sending it to one of my buddies who thought this butcher Airbnb experience thing was a great business idea, until I showed him the water wheels, and he said, "What are you gonna do with those?" And I'm like, "I don't know, maybe make electricity with them or something. Make a neat feature out of the property." And he's like, "Dude, you need to mine Bitcoin with those." I'm like, "What do you mean mine Bitcoin? I don't know what that means." I mean, I kind of know what Bitcoin was. It's this funny internet money. Anyway, long story short, he got me very, very interested in it at that point, and I came within probably inches of buying that property and doing it. The problem is that because you have free energy with the river there, where it was on the Winnebago River, and there was a dam there, and blah blah blah. And I sunk a ton of time into looking to do this because I was really close, like I say, to doing that. And I think we would have been able, for the power that could generate, we could have probably had 30 or 40 ASIC miners, that it could have run off. Yeah. But it didn't happen. So then I kind of let Bitcoin slide. And then that was, when I was getting into it, I mean, it was in the midst of its crash. I think it was about 40,000 when I got interested. And then I kind of watched it dribble all the way down to, the teens. And I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting. And, but then, my good friend Vance Crow, who came and spoke at your guys' event here a few weeks ago, he was talking to me a lot about it on our talks and visits, and actually went to a get together that he had, and had a guy by the name of David Aransky talk for an hour about it, and made kind of the argument. And that was in, let's see, 2023, I believe. Essentially explained it to me. I'd done the work also of reading the Bitcoin Standard, and some of that homework as well, to basically what is money, and why do we need something like Bitcoin in the future. So yeah, so that was my journey, and that's when I really started to get into it. And now, yeah, a couple years in, and I've definitely been seasoned. I mean, it's a very painful process, but rewarding at the same time and exciting. A lot of people like to dunk on me on the fact that, it's down in the crapper, right now come from the highs, but like, when I got interested in it, it was, 17,000 and, and now it's crashed to 60, 8 or whatever it is today. So,
Well, I bought my first in 2021 for 47,000. And yeah, 17,000 is the number I remember when I, in a discouraged, grumpy sort of a way, bought some.
sure.
And yeah, with 2020 hindsight, dang, should have bought a whole bunch more. But it's part of the deal.
Right.
And I remember you and I texting when we were at the 125,000
Hmm.
last year.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a fun day. It didn't last very long though. So
No, it did not.
yeah.
Well, you've told us as a Bitcoin team, Zach, that you'd rather buy Bitcoin than farmland. And you own both. Kind of where are you coming from in saying that?
Yeah, so I just, I'm always kind of looking down the road. I've always been interested in, thinking 10 or 15 years or looking or being interested in kind of future talk. And I'm lucky enough, especially with the community I've created with Stockropper, to be surrounded by a lot of really forward thinking people. That's one of the real joys and benefits that I've had to doing this adventure. And when I look at the challenges facing agriculture, specifically corn and soybean production in the future, and how much our land values are propped up by government policy, I don't know how sustainable that's going to be from a public sentiment standpoint in the future. And so there's a long way I think for land potentially to fall, even though it's always been a great store of value. But it's also always been propped up by things like the renewable fuel standard and subsidized crop insurance and on and bridge payments like we've gotten. And so from my standpoint, Bitcoin and land are very similar, except that, Bitcoin you can take anywhere in the world. And, you can't do that with the home quarter, even as much as you may love it. You can't, if, we live in wild times right now. Right now, you don't know what could ever happen. But if you did need to leave for some reason, you can't take the home quarter to Switzerland with you, but you can take Bitcoin. And so from a fundamental standard, I just look at, technically what it is. It took a long time to understand that. I think, they say it takes 100 hours of work really to get to that level of understanding. But I look at everything else that I can invest in, and I look at the way the ball is bouncing right now with monetary policy in this country. We're going to print money forever, it seems like, whether it's to go to war or to grow food to support that. And so, if we're going to keep debasing the dollar, I'm just, what are things that can outpace that? And that's when I look at when you look at the track history of Bitcoin since, pick your year, it's the best performing asset of anything. And yeah, it's incredibly volatile and it can be scary and people can dunk on you on the internet for telling you don't know what you're doing, but it's proven everyone wrong, up until this point. So, but yeah, never say never. Anything's possible, but I mean, there are risks to it and I know what those things are, but, yeah, those are the reasons that, yeah, that long term, I'd rather own Bitcoin because I think, the chance for it to go up versus farmland, in value in the future are substantially higher.
Do you view it as something where eventually, at least, the ratio of Bitcoin to farmland prices, something that Vance Grow asked about on his podcast, where that changes and it's like, okay, I've accumulated some Bitcoin and now I will trade that for farmland because it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think so. Yeah. I mean, I had this conversation with a younger farmer than me, just like a week or 10 days ago. He was trying to like understand it. And I broke it down and I said, well, listen, if you bought an 80-acre field in 2015 and looked at the appreciation from that till now, and then you looked at Bitcoin in 2015, your 80 would be worth like $300,000 more, over that 10-year period. And if you would have taken that $600,000 to buy the 80 in 2015 and bought Bitcoin, you could buy 16 farm sections today with the current price of where it's at. So you don't have to like sell all your Bitcoin to buy the farmlands. Like I would settle for owning 8 sections. Uh, that would be fine, right? So now it's easy to make that comparison when you look back, because the returns have been, I mean, it's been a bigger climb. I think that will flatten out with time, but still, um, yeah, I mean, and that it would be great if that worked out. I'd like to buy some ground someday. When my parents, pass away, we've got an estate plan, and there's going to be a couple farms that'll be available to be bought. And yeah, that's, part of my strategy is to be in a position where that's a lot easier lift, than just buying farmland now and hoping that that can, you know, appreciate and then I can borrow against that to buy the farm. So,
Oh, I've thought about some of that same stuff, and that to connect my kids to their family back in Nebraska where I grew up and own some farmland, buying them a quarter each or something. Now we still have to figure out if their cousin, my nephew, wants to farm and all of that. But it's sort of like economics of that don't make a heck of a lot of sense. I'm sure they would take a quarter section
right.
under whatever terms offered, but I want it to make some economic sense. And so anyway, I'm going with the long-term Bitcoin strategy is my kind of way of doing that.
Yeah, for sure.
So, farming that you're engaged with is capital intensive. You put more than $1,000 an acre into some of your acres before you harvest a thing. It just takes money. Yeah, and then you pursue a startup is your other thing that you do.
Yeah, why not?
It takes capital as well. As you think about a capital-intensive industry in our current monetary system, how do you think about that and sort of what we face in agriculture and needing to access borrowed capital to do what we do?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a screwy system the way that we do things, compared to a lot of other industries. And my situation's a little bit different in the fact that I was pretty fortunate when I came into farming, so I don't have to borrow a ton for operating. I'm lucky to be in that position. But we're always kind of last to the table, and we're takers on everything. And especially now with what's happening with inflation, what it does to input costs, and trying to stay ahead of that. Like I don't know how you give anyone that's young that's coming in this business a roadmap for how to navigate this space. I mean, I mean, even this week with what diesel has done, with the war in Iran, and then you just put that on top of all of the other, inflationary pressures that we've had over the last couple of years with no reprieve and crappier prices. The only thing you can do is to try to, out yield that, which further perpetuates the problem of the carry out and all the things that happen. So, I'm not sure if that answered the question as well as it could, but yeah, that's probably the best I can do.
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. Department of Agriculture tracks index of prices, and I'm going to be close, I think, on these. But they have a 2011 index of prices received for grain farmers and then prices paid for inputs. Well, probably no great shock to you, but prices received for grain farmers are 70% of what they were 2011 on their index. Prices paid are at 170%.
Right.
So
Thus why we print money to close the gap, right? I mean, the bridge payments all hit last week, or they started to anyway. Mine did. So,
I think part of the deeper question for me is, you obviously see the hard money aspect of Bitcoin. Uh, I think it gets to like how deep do you believe in decentralization and some of the efficiencies that can be imported into operations as well.
I mean, I don't know. It's hard because I mean, we're still a long ways from that, I think, right now. But I like that's part of the reason I like it. I like that concept of things being more decentralized and decoupled from the way we do things now. Yeah, that's but it's going to take time. I think we're on the cusp of something probably, I mean, with everything going on in the world, I feel like with everything happening in Congress around this stuff with the Genius Act and now the Clarity Act, hopefully passing, that there will start to be some like watershed moments where, the dam starts to break on this and basically give people the comfort of, considering these things truly possible moving forward. I hope that comes sooner than later, but yeah, we'll see what happens. So
I mean, even yeah. So Bitcoin is decentralized money is one thing, but even Stockropper, Zach, is decentralized, right? A family being able on fewer acres to produce protein that
yeah,
yeah
I mean,
they could sell into wider markets, but potentially they could just sell to their neighbors.
the dream was, to get back to the original model of farming, which was a family could make a living off 160 acres, which with the productivity of what we're producing, that would be possible if you could sell the meat. So, yeah.
So I know in some of our past conversations, Zach, you've getting at sort of the long-term, long game here. You've told us that you're buying Bitcoin as much for your children that you're now kindly sending to Iowa State University as you are for yourself. Can you kind of explain how you think about that and the kind of the long-term play here?
Yeah. The thing that keeps me up the most at night, or what I wake up at 3 in the morning thinking about, is like, what is going to happen with all this AI stuff? And, will there be a place for my kids and my grandkids down the road, or down the path? And they may not have the privileges and the optionality, or the opportunities that I did to get in a spot where you can generate enough wealth where you could think about, providing for your family down the road. I don't know that, if we get to a UBI system, if, 70% of the workforce isn't required, like what that, comes to. I have a hard time believing it's going to be a universal wealth like what Elon talks about. Why don't we have that now with the wealth gap that exists between, folks? So what's going to change with AI? So I think a lot about wanting to invest intelligently in things that can provide for the future generation, maybe better than other assets. And my limited understanding of it, I think this is probably the right bet to make, or at least to have exposure. I'm definitely not all in, but I wanted to have some exposure that would give, the opportunity, if depending on how the ball bounces, to be able to take care of my family in the future.
Yeah, I think universal basic income is the perfect plan if you want to ruin people.
Yeah. No, it will be. I mean, AI is terrifying for the social costs and like what that would do to people's psyches. And it's actually one of the things we're using in our pitch deck for stock croppers, saying if people don't have jobs, they're going to need something meaningful in their life. And like growing your own
Mhm.
food is a very, very meaningful activity. And we see maybe a better opportunity for, stock cropper devices in that scenario too. But like, it'd be good for us, but like, you know, I mean, you got to care about everybody else, because it's going to be a pretty crappy. I mean, we think we have problems now. You don't have purpose for people. Look out. So,
Yeah, hopefully, yeah, glass half full approach, I suppose. But you give people room for creativity and the fun things they actually want to do. They
yeah,
throw out and who knows, but they throw out surveys where 60 to 70% of people hate their jobs.
yeah,
It's like, God dang it. I mean, that isn't a
yeah.
good place to be either.
Right, right.
And, I know I'm the entrepreneurship guy, but it's sort of like you're not going to have good days at any work,
No,
whether you're working for yourself or whatever. I get that. But like,
right,
if you truly hate your job, like change what you're doing. God's
right.
sakes. I mean,
Yeah,
come on.
yeah, yeah. No, 100%.
Well, Kale, before we went to, I had a kind of lightning, Zach, we're going to try out for you some lightning round sort of questions that we might try to integrate into our future podcast interviews. But Kale,
Yeah, that
do you
sounds
think
good.
there's any questions that we left out?
Mine hinged on AI. I mean, I guess I'll just talk about what I think about AI as well. I think Bitcoin, is the perfect currency for AI. Everything kind of lines up, programmable money. AI only really cares about code. Once we get agents starting to perform in the economy, I think that makes a lot of sense. If agents start to, accumulate, become a bigger portion of economic activity, all of a sudden, Zach, you've set your kids up with the premier currency that's better than anything else, and the AI that's taken over is actively outbidding humans for that. So all they have to do is sit on that pot.
Yeah, it was pretty wild to see that clawbots were establishing wallets a few weeks ago, and like, because Bitcoin was the apex currency that they wanted to hold, or asset, I should say. Yeah, I mean, who knows? You know, quantum is definitely a risk, coming to, I do worry about that a little bit, but, yeah, I'm with you, Kale. I think, if that can be mitigated, I think, when the intelligent machines are picking this, what does that say to the rest of us? So, and
Right.
I've been using it a lot in the last, especially the last couple weeks. I've made the purchase to the higher level type stuff, and it is just it's
So
just an
you
absolute game
share
changer.
a few examples or use cases for how it's been useful to you, please.
Well, so Vance Crow, actually, helped me set up a claw bot a few weeks ago. I got it set up, but then I got nervous, about it after the fact, about hooking it to all my stuff, to try to figure out how to use it. And I'm old enough where I scare myself a little bit when my kids would, make fun of me with my technological prowess. And so I've gone back to just using, just Claude, and I have the Pro Max account, or whatever. And, but I'm using it every day. I don't know how many times, but like today I probably used it 25 times for solving problems and just increasing my overall productivity with, doing a startup. It's completely changed the game. I started 6 years ago with Stockropper, and I didn't know a lot about anything. And to have the ability to basically type your problems into a machine and have it give you phenomenal contextual information back within 15 seconds of needing to know something, and then, "Oh, I need to code something for this," or like this week we rebuilt our website without, our web host guy having to step in and do it because we were because he was on vacation. He's a human being, he needs a break, but we needed the website redone this week for our launch. And so like AI enabled that to happen instead of having to, so there's been a whole host of things. And, there's definitely downfalls. It's not right all the time. It's still, I think it's really nice to be somebody that was raised in the time that where you had to learn how to think critically on your own. I think the combination of people in my generation, or millennials underneath that know how to think and can interact with this thing have a lot of potential. But I do worry about what happens with kids that only grow up with this thing that can solve all their problems and they can't critically think or interact or push it. Or maybe that won't be relevant in 5 years because it'll be so flippin' awesome. It won't matter. So I don't know. But yeah.
I was visiting with a farmer friend yesterday about his use of AI, and Grok is his thing. And so on his drives, he talks to Grok, and Grok talks back to him. And so he's tackling some really interesting, detailed agronomic things he's going to try this year with his crops. He's a shrimp farmer, so everything's new in trying to figure that out. But I laughed and said, if I'm not on the phone when I'm driving, I listen to podcasts, try to learn something, and it is good. But I said, you have a two-way thing going. You're both talking, and which is how we learn best as human beings, like through dialogue.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing to do when I go on long trips now is I just, I've got Grok on my phone and, actually I've got it on my car too with my Tesla, and you just sit there and everything I want to know, and the drive goes by and I'm having a conversation. It's kind of creepy, but like
And you have a
you can,
Tesla, so you don't have to drive.
yeah, yeah, that's right. I hit the button and go. And that's another phenomenal AI creation. Like, my gosh, the joy that thing has brought me, and yeah, I love that car. If you haven't done AI and you haven't drove a Tesla with self-driving, go do it this weekend. That's the push.
Well, and I thought the other thing you told me as you were into your Tesla was really interesting, and that was, anyway, trying to get, let's say, an older couple in your life into a Tesla just from a like safety
Oh yeah.
perspective.
No, I pushed my parents into one actually, last fall because, they're getting older and like their driving isn't as good as what it should be. And I think the self-driving is going to be a huge thing, for people and quality of life and being able to move around, especially in rural areas, where resource or the services are decreasing, and like the need to be able to go further to the doctor and not relying on these, the buses that come around to small towns and take people to Mason City or wherever they need to go. Like it's going to be, it takes a while to figure out the technology, but my folks are doing great with it now, and yeah,
Good,
they're
good,
really
good.
enjoying it. So
All right, well, let's wrap up with our first try at a lightning round, Zach.
okay,
So just some quick answers on this, and I think you explained this first one just a little bit, but your first Bitcoin purchase,
2023,
and you thought in the 40-some thousands?
35, I think.
Okay, goodbye. What has been your biggest mistake, if any, in Bitcoin?
uh, uh, yeah, not looking at the charts and just getting caught up in the emotion of buying, thinking, you're in the banana zone or whatever. I've done that. So
What is the best Bitcoin resource for other farmers?
Hmm.
Book, podcast,
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think for somebody in agriculture, I think you should listen to somebody like Vance Crowe. There's nobody that I know in agriculture that is more gifted at explaining and understanding it. Vance is a wizard and a huge asset for everyone in agriculture to be able to tap into on this topic.
If there's one myth about Bitcoin you'd like to debunk, what is that?
I think a lot of people think that, it can just be, somebody can create new Bitcoin, because of all the other cryptos and, but when you get into understanding it, the structure of how it works, you quickly understand that that's not the case. So,
And yeah, everybody wants one money. So there's
yeah.
just network effects, and something is going to emerge. All right, when Bitcoin succeeds, what do you think agriculture looks like? What's different?
I think when Bitcoin succeeds, we get land back to utility value, and that will be a good thing. Instead of all the investment that we have kind of falsely propping stuff up, I think that'll create more opportunities especially for younger people. That's what I'm passionate about. So
I look forward to the day. Well, Zach, thank you for being our guest. If somebody wants to get a hold of you or check out Stockropper, how do they do that?
sure, you can go to thestockropper.com. That's our website. Otherwise, my email is Zack, ZACK, at thestockropper.com. And we're on Facebook, YouTube, X. My handle is at Zebulus Prime. And yeah, we're on TikTok, LinkedIn, all the platforms. We have some kind of exposure there. So
Great X handle.
Yeah.
yeah, appreciate that.
All right, that's a wrap.